This week on the Virtual Skeptics. Bob casts out demons in the name of Jesus. I said it right? Okay.
Jesus!
Jesus! Eve is bloody-minded. Okay, and Tim is defending Dr. Oz. Man, all these intros are messing with my head. I'm your host, Brian Gregory, but you can call me Lord Kimboat. That's right. It's going to be one of those episodes. Hi!
Hi!
Everybody wave. Okay.
Hello!
Welcome. This is the Virtual Skeptics. Let me introduce my crew. First up, Bob Blaskiewicz, CSI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and Skepticality contributor, and does not know gang signs. Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities, and contributor to Skepticality and Insight without an S at skeptic.com. And finally, Tim Farley, blogger at SkepTools and Insight without an S at skeptic.com, Skepticality contributor, creator of What's the Harm, and former JREF fellow. Welcome, welcome, one and all, to the wonderful thing that we call the Virtual Skeptics.
Hooray!
Okay, so
clearly
now
excited to be here.
We're clearly excited. Yay! Should I do crowd noise? No. So let's get this thing rolling. First up, he got us a trivia question.
That's right. I have a trivia question, and it has to do with the Phoenix Lights UFO.
Ooh.
Remember that? Series of lights that were visible from Phoenix, Arizona. There's somebody who has a website who promotes it. Has done a couple documentaries and a couple books, and her name is Lynn Katai, M.D. She is a doctor. But she is also an actress, or has been in the past, and she had a small role in what 1987 cult comedy film? Lynn Katai, UFO promoter, was in what comedy film that came out in 1987?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Eve, did you know this one?
And I'll give you a hint. Phoenix Lights might
Phoenix
lead you
Lights.
to the right answer.
Huh. Interesting. I don't know that one, but I do know that in episode 4, I think, of the first season of X-Files, they reference Psychop. Mulder Mulder is in, like, he's been detained because he's trying to get into a UFO like he always is. And there's a UFO spotter guy who's in the next cage that asks him if he's with MUFON, blah, 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 blah. And then finally said, no, dude, are you with that new group, Psychop?
That's awesome!
Isn't that cool? That's pretty cool.
That's funny.
Oh, that makes me happy.
Okay, so get on that trivia question, post it on Twitter or on the comments or any of those wonderful places, and if you do it first, you get it, I don't know, get something. Secondary quiz, 2 screens behind me, and there's a theme this week, and I'm going to tell you right now, they're both X-Files episodes from Season 1. If you look closely, you'll be able to figure out them both. If you know anything.
I have a trivia question too.
Uh-oh.
Shane and Lizzie are how many years old?
Okay.
Yeah, it's my niece and nephew, the twins.
Oh.
It's their birthday.
Okay. Would the tweeter know that?
Probably not.
Okay.
If they do, that's some creepy shit.
That's gonna be creepy. Okie dokie. Who's first? Who's first?
That's Eve.
Eve's first. Hey, Eve's gonna talk about I don't want to even. I'm just looking. What? Just do it because wow. Don't go on a murder spree. That's what I'm worried about.
Aww. All right. Okay. Good news. Pope Francis.
Everyone. Sorry.
Pope Francis performed a miracle.
Yay!
Well, a miracle happened in his presence. Well, half a miracle happened in his presence. And it's a miracle that has only occurred 3 times a year since 1389. And it's not officially recognized as a miracle by the Vatican. But still, hey, miracle-ish. So, what the crap happened, you may ask?
That's basically all skepticism. What the crap happened?
Yeah, well,
That's kind of your tagline.
Francis visited Naples to venerate the reliquary of Saint Januarius, or San Gennaro in Italian, Naples' patron saint, which allegedly contains 2 vials of Januarius's dried blood. I have 2 slides of this. First, Francis lifted the reliquary.
There he is lifting the reliquary.
There and the next one, he's kissing it. So, yeah. So just remember
Apologize for the sound effect.
Remember that this action will become important later.
Okay.
Cardinal Crescenzo Sepe declared that half the substance became liquid. It is the sign that Saint Gennaro loves Pope Francis, he said. Half the blood turned to liquid. The Pope grabbed the mic, replied, the bishop said the blood is only half liquefied. It appears the saint only loves us halfway. We have to convert ourselves to good more so he loves us more.
Oh, you ruined a good snap, man. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some reports say that the stuff entirely liquefied sometime later. Now, and this is going to be typical of this report, that it's like some reports say, on the other hand. So just be prepared for that. And for the wailing cat in the background. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. A number of articles have said that the blood previously failed to liquefy in the presence of Benedict XVI and Saint John Paul II. And I don't know if they actually handled the reliquary or not, which could be important. Supposedly, the last time it liquefied in the presence of a pope was in 1849 for Pius IX. Although that's been questioned also because apparently the blood, well, the first time he went, it didn't liquefy. And then he went again, and the blood had actually liquefied the day before his visit. So I think it was still liquid when he was there, but the actual miracle had occurred the day before. So what is up with the blood?
What is the tolerance on liquefaction and proximity?
Good question. Maybe we'll find out.
Okay.
Find out, though. So what's up with the blood? The blood's been doing this since 1389. That's over 600 years, which is a really long time. And I'd like you also to remember that amount of time. We'll come back to that, too. So 3 times a year, the blood is taken from its vault and processed around Naples. Different times it goes to different places, I think. The Saturday before the first Sunday in May, that's the feast celebrating the translation of Januarius's relics. On September 19th, the feast commemorating his martyrdom. And then on December 16th, the feast that honors him as the patron saint in Naples. And apparently, when it liquefies, it's announced that it's liquefied, and then there's a 21-gun salute. Anyway,
what Catholic tradition is that?
I don't know.
I don't
On
know
those
about the
days, the
21
blood.
gun salute, but
Yeah.
Just...
It's taken from its vault, it's paraded around while the faithful pray for the miracle. The liquefaction said to bring good luck, and the failure to liquefy or a delay in the liquefaction is said to be ill-omened, though there's dispute about exactly when these failures have occurred and what the result has been. Often, though, it's an earthquake because it's a very active part of Italy. For instance, some sources say it failed to liquefy in 1980 before a devastating earthquake that killed almost 3,000 people. But other sources give the date as 1976 before a less severe earthquake. So, Sometimes the liquefaction's almost instantaneous. Sometimes it takes hours or days. Sometimes it's already occurred when it's removed from the vault. And significantly, it's apparently occurred when the reliquary's been moved or handled for repairs. So...
But it sounds like you have to worry when it doesn't liquefy.
Yes.
Is that when disasters happen?
Supposedly.
Okay, so I'd rather it,
Does that mean that the artisans and the conservators who are working on it are actually the Pope?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
So,
just to make sure we got that point of doctrine taken care of here.
Yeah.
Is this a sealed vessel? Is it like Tupperware or?
Yes, it's sort of doubly sealed. I don't know if you can see it in either of the pictures we have of the Pope, but it's a reliquary, and it's sealed in glass. Then within that glass are actually two glass vials. One only contains a few tiny sort of spots of what's supposed to be blood, and the other a more significant amount, and that's the more important one.
So it's a sealed glass vessel, okay.
Yeah. Now, so who is Saint Januarius? Good question that you guys, I'm sure, were asking.
I was asking in my head.
Basically, bugger all is known about him, for sure. He apparently was Bishop of Benevento near Naples, and he was supposedly martyred in 305 during the persecution of Diocletian, who Bob probably has heard about.
Roman Emperor. You're welcome. Skeptical humanities, people.
Yeah. According to later accounts, his assorted relics sort of went on a bit of a ramble after his death, moved hither and thither, not, of their own accord.
Thanks for the image in my head, though.
You're welcome. Were stolen, lost for centuries, and then finally found. And then his head and bones were reunited, more or less, in Naples. The skull is in its own reliquary, I think. In Naples, the early 14th century.
I'm sorry. It's just like his skull and bones were kind of brought back. I feel bad for the guy.
It was like from Bedknobs and Broomsticks. No, never mind. Go ahead.
Ceremonies in his honor were instituted in 1337, but nothing is mentioned of miraculous blood at that time. Now, remember I told you the blood's been doing its thing for 600 years? Well, for 1,000 years before that, nothing. In fact, there's no mention of it even existing for 1,000 years. The blood is first mentioned in 1389, specifically on August 17, 1389, the blood was supposed to have liquefied. And that, as I said, the first mention of it. There's talk about his relics before that, talk about ceremonies in his honor before that, nothing about any blood. Around the same time, the legend that a serving woman had collected the blood from the stone on which he was decapitated first began to circulate. So, the provenance is a teeny tiny bit questionable. And the fact the fact that the supposed blood liquefies when the reliquary is handled, even for mundane reasons, also raises some questions. There have been several non-supernatural explanations for the liquefaction, going back at least to the 19th century. One popular one is that it's a substance with a low melting point. In 1991, Joe Nickel and John F. Fisher replicated the phenomenon using beeswax, olive oil, and red pigment. But there are some problems with that. Substances with low melting points still have stable melting points, and the liquefaction, again, it's 3 times a year. It's occurred at different temperatures, under different circumstances. When the glass was said to be cool, candles aren't used around it anymore. So heat, even slight heat, might not be a reliable thing. But in the same year that Nickel and Fisher were experimenting...
What about atmospheric pressure?
I don't know. But another possibility...
Random.
Yeah. In the same year that Nickel and Fisher were experimenting with beeswax, 3 men whose names I'm going to do bad things to, probably: Luigi Garlaschelli, Franco Ramacini, and Sergio Della Sala, published a letter in Nature in which they suggested that the substance is a thixotropic gel, which is one that will tend to liquefy when stirred or vibrated, and to solidify again when left to stand.
Ah.
By the way, ketchup is apparently...
It's like the opposite of a Newtonian fluid.
Yeah, those 3 guys, by the way, are closely associated with CCOP, the Italian skeptic organization.
Right. Yeah, they published a number of things, or at least Garlaschelli has, including one co-authored by a member of a skeptic group. So anyway, the very act of handling the reliquary and turning it to see if the blood has liquefied, according to this theory, would actually cause it to liquefy. And the next slide shows a hand.
2 hands.
Actually doing this
Is it the
with...
same hand?
Yes, with a thixotropic gel of iron hydroxide that they created, and that worked quite well. And they made it, as you can see, it's solid, then it liquefies. However, they used the weakest point of this, and they admit this, is that they used dialysis to, quote, purify the colloidal dispersion, and that's a procedure that wasn't documented, or at least for that purpose, until the 19th century. So it's still possible it was done, but without the dialysis, and they did try it without the dialysis using other means, but the liquefaction did not work as reliably without the dialysis. So, there are problems with the theories that have been suggested, and certainly you can't say that they've been definitively proven. Still, low melting point and thixotrophy are more plausible explanations than miracle, and they've been shown to be plausible and to actually work. The church, you'll be surprised to learn, won't allow the files to be opened and the substance examined. And without such an examination, it's impossible to say definitively, well, what the substance is and what the mechanism is that causes it to liquefy. There have been spectroscopic analyses of the supposed blood, and these are sometimes said to have definitively shown that it is blood, but there are problems with those as well. It seems to be consistent with hemoglobin, but the glass may cause, and again, there's actually 2 sets of glass. The glass may cause distortion, and on top of that, something that looks a lot like blood may also look like blood under spectroscopy. Or, you know what? Apparently, it could be blood. According to Wikipedia's explanation of an article in Italian that I haven't read, quote,
Wow.
in 2010...
That sounds a little sketchy.
Yeah. An experiment was conducted by Giuseppe Geraci, professor of the Department of Molecular Biology of the Università Federico Due di Napoli on a file containing old blood, a relic dating back to the 18th century from the Eremo di Camaldoli near Arezzo in Tuscany, having the same characteristics of the blood of St. Januarius. Geraci has shown that the Camaldoli's relic actually contains blood that can change its solid liquid phase by shaking. He has also reproduced the phenomenon with his own blood stored in the same conditions of the Camaldoli's relic. Geraci finally argues that, quote, there's blood, no miracle, unquote. One more thing. This isn't the only blood miracle. Far from it, in fact. There are or were lots of blood relics. Not all of them were miraculous, but at least 7 were. And the blood relics and the miraculously liquefying blood all seem to have congregated in southern Italy around Naples in the Middle Ages, which may suggest that whatever the substance is was a local discovery or a local invention.
So some way of preserving blood, or at least preparing it, or whatever that produced this result. Interesting.
And yeah, that makes me wonder if there was, if there wasn't a single source. Did they come out? Was it the same year? Did these things start appearing, or roughly the same year?
I'm not sure about that. I didn't find. I mean, it gets mentioned that there were others, but not exactly where they were and where they came from. Although apparently there aren't any mentions of it earlier than Januarius.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay.
Interesting. Huh.
That's what I said. Chemistry's fun and easy to do. That's all I'm saying.
And it's a miracle.
It's like science.
A miracle. Okay.
I tell you, last year at RavenCon, we had someone who basically said that. Science is basically a miracle. You can change matter. Here, let's make a death cloud.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me.
That will make sense to someone out there.
Yes, make the death cloud.
Then they made a death cloud.
Yeah. Well, sometimes science is hard. Sometimes chemistry is hard and fun. Okay. And in your next, Bob, you're going to be talking about something that scares me too.
Jesus.
And demons.
Scary.
And demons. Well, it's not really demons.
Well, the fact that you're doing it is kind of the scary part.
Well, there's that, I'm sorry, I have to read off of a script today. My screen is messed up. Thanks, Mina. She's sleeping on my MacBook.
Sure, blame the cat.
Yeah. Okay, so, speaking of miracles, faith healer Benny Hinn, if you could bring up the first image. Faith healer Benny Hinn.
No, that's the wrong Benny.
Oh, wait.
Hold it. Wait for it.
I like to think that's what was playing in the ambulance. Okay, so he was admitted to the intensive care unit this week.
That could have been planned better.
Yeah. Hinn is a very, very wealthy faith healer who goes on what he calls miracle crusades, which he holds in arenas and other large venues around the world. My understanding of Benny Hinn comes from reading a few accounts over the years and seeing a couple of videos and snippets of TV episodes of his. His show usually starts with singers and performers getting the crowd warmed up. You see a lot of swelling and falling music to get the crowd compliant and receptive to the message, and it's also done in these really large venues, and that's a really powerful social pressure to go along. Yeah.
Well, didn't Darren Brown do a faith healer show where they like groomed someone to do this?
Yeah.
To show that
Well,
it could be.
His was more. The one that they taught this guy to do, I think, was a little bit more overtly scammy, like watching your leg grow, that sort of thing. But a lot of the same techniques.
Just more like Peter pop off.
Yeah, that's what struck me. But don't get me wrong. Benny Hinn's is no less suspicious. So the swelling music gets the crowd receptive, and they get kind of whipped up. And so by the time that Hinn ascends from behind the stage into the spotlight, dressed in a dazzling white suit, singing "How Great Thou Art," the audience is already in his thrall. It's a compelling spectacle that he puts on.
I've been to these kind of events, and it is quite emotional.
Yeah,
and the whole drama, the whole situation, the crowd going crazy. Yeah.
The one
it's
that
like a rock show.
I went to see the Pope when he was in St. Louis, and it was John Paul, I guess, and there was a lot of the same stuff where they had a long run up, and it was kind of like a rock star came out at the end. So I can see that. According to Joe Nickell, who wrote about Hinn.
Second Joe Nickell reference tonight.
I know this is and John Paul reference.
Yep.
So add that to that could be a skeptic history or something, Tim. Okay.
Or the drinking game.
Our drinking game, right? So Joe Nickell did investigate this one, or he wrote about it. He did go to a Benny Hinn, but he didn't try to participate in the spectacle. He just went with a cane that he had left over from an accident a year earlier. So Hinn gives a little bit of a sermon once he comes out, and then he invites sick people up onto the stage. Then there is, and if you bring up the next image, a laying on of hands. And this is what he's really known for. I love that. Eve won't get the reference, but
There's actually a whole video of him doing that.
Oh, really?
With effects, which is really cool. Yes.
Oh, that's great. Showman like, So he lays on his hands on them and he knocks them over, sometimes with just a finger, sometimes, next image, he does it rather flamboyantly, swatting them with his coat. And that, I don't know what the difference between that and assaulting someone is, but.
Ooh, so maybe he's got some kind of.
Yeah. Cattle prod or something in his coat.
The power actually comes from his tailor.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, if you've ever seen his jacket, you know that his tailor can't afford an entire collar, right?
Oh.
He wears that little kind of, it looks a little bit like a Neo kind of outfit, except without the long tails. So Hinn's a superb showman. He plays to an eager crowd, one that wants and expects to see healing miracles in front of them, and of course, believing is seeing. What they are missing is the way that the shows are rigged to produce an effect that looks like healing, but which, in every case investigated by independent researchers, has turned out to be not a miracle. According to Nickell, Hinn claims that miracles are already happening all over the stadium before anyone comes up. And as Nickell explains, thus, instead of the afflicted being invited up to be healed, with no guarantee of success, the shotgun method encourages receptive, emotional individuals to believe that they are healed. Only that self-selected group is invited to come forward and testify to their supposedly miraculous transformation. Helpers in the crowd then, after that, redirect people with obvious physical disabilities back to their seats. So if someone has a brain damage or amputee or something, they get sent back.
This reminds me of cold reading.
You know what it did? It reminded me of when we went to go see the little guy with the scarves in Atlanta.
Right.
Operation
Coffee.
Chip coffee. That's right.
Coffee. Yeah.
What he did was we noticed that he spent a lot of time up front dealing with the people who had paid the most for their tickets. Thereby, just by the ticket pricing process, had sorted his crowd by ideological commitment to his message.
Yep.
Right. So his money was up front. It was not in the back with us. That's why we didn't get in.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something. Someone on a forum one time, who a believer, had volunteered or been volunteered to work at I think it was Benny Hinn thingy at, I don't know, somewhere like Oral Roberts University, something like that. And he claimed that they put out wheelchairs all along the front. And then when people come in and they're feeling a little off, they say, "Oh, here, sit down in this wheelchair." And they, "Oh, isn't that nice?" But so when the miraculous healing occurs, it looks like they're standing up from wheelchairs. Well, they are standing up from wheelchairs. It's just that they didn't come in the wheelchairs to begin with.
Yeah, I've heard that too as a tactic. Yeah, Tim?
Yeah.
Did you have something, Tim?
Your mic's off.
He had a mute button, that's what he had. So clearly I'm imagining things now.
Mm.
But yeah, that's the thing. Any one of these, and it's like magic, if you just focus on this one little bit out of context, it looks much more mystical and miraculous than it in fact is. So the same thing with the wheelchairs. It's building on assumptions that we make about the presence of a wheelchair.
Yeah, and some of it seems like they're trying not to be dishonest, but they're doing shady things anyway.
Yeah. If you are flying around in a multi-million-dollar aircraft, you may have a moral responsibility to check to see if you're misleading people,
But God blesses me because I do His work.
It's all for the grace of God.
Yeah. So helpers in the crowd, they redirect the visibly ill. So you never see people with visible illnesses up on stage. Once you make it down to the end of the aisle, once you've made it past the first group of screeners, then reports Jim Underdown, who went to a show in California in 2001.
Yep.
He said there's a little mini screening where the minions are looking for enthusiasm, which you do when you're doing hypnotism, and a compelling story, a compelling backstory of suffering.
The same criteria they use to pick contestants for The Price is Right.
Pretty much.
That's a joke.
You hurt me with that humor.
Sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, so there's actually a really involved screening process getting people up there, and then they get up on the stage to testify their healing, and then they get smacked with a coat, right? Of course,
you could put an eye out with a coat that has like buttons on the.
But then you can get healed just like that.
What if you forgot to take a pin out of the pocket?
Whip it into their heart like the frickin' crocodile
At least.
hunter.
Nice silver cufflinks on the
I
coat.
don't know. Well, at least you know that he can heal them immediately after he hurts them.
Right. So the numerous cases, there are numerous reported cases of patients who believe that Hinn had healed them and have thrown away their medications. And I suggest that you look up. I have the Joe Nickel link in the show notes.
Okay.
Look at that. That gives you a good starting point to look into the types of stuff that's supposed to have been healed. And they throw away their medications hoping to live the life of someone who's been miraculously healed. And that can lead to really bad things. Throw away your insulin, for instance, is not a recommended course of action. And even when you go back to these people later and ask if they were healed, they'll say yes. If you talk to their doctors, of course, they'll say, no, what they had at the time was a slow-growing tumor, or what they had was not as bad as this person said it was. You know, the hearing loss that was recovered was transitory, that type of thing. So given this action and the way he profits from this, it's widely believed that Hinn has a defective heart. If you could bring up the next image. Last week, he proved us right by being admitted to an Orange County hospital following a spell of shortness of breath and then atrial fibrillation, where his heart raced with 200 times a minute. But, of course, he wouldn't let anyone touch him until he healed everyone in the entire hospital first. Just kidding. Yeah. Anyway, he'd recently returned from a Brazilian crusade, and there's speculation.
Well done.
Oh my God! Did you use paper hard copy just for that joke?
I did, in fact, do that.
I think
so. So there is speculation that he overworked himself. It sounds like he's recovering, but his family is asking for prayers. So, guys, if you would bow your heads for a second. Benny dear, if you're out there watching, recovering in your hospital bed, could you bring up the next image? I want you to press your increasingly John Lovitz character-like face against the computer monitor right now and receive the Lord's blessing. Go on. All right. I feel the Lord is speaking. I feel the Lord is speaking to me, and He has a special message of love and healing just for you, Benny, because God is reaching inside your tailored white linen suit and tickling your ventricles with His healing fingertips, casting out the demon atrial fibrillation. Can you feel it, Benny? As you're healed, as you're filled with the warmth and light of the Lord's love, you're now completely and miraculously healed. Now I want you to throw away all your medication, leave the cardiac wing, go to the ground floor of your hospital, and run up the stairs, taking the steps 2 by 2 in Jesus' name. I look forward to your estate's sizable donation to my ministry.
Wow. That's some pretty good satire there, Bob.
Amen. Go in peace and sin no more.
It made me a little uncomfortable, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I make people feel awkward, I hear.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say to that. But yeah, your point's well taken. It was a nice opportunity.
Well, that's exactly what he does. There was one point where he said that he had visions of people rising from the dead on TV. You know, he's on TV and he does TV healing.
People believe this stuff. I mean, I've been in this. I was in this at one time. I've been to events. I've worked events. This is a long time ago now. But yeah, people believe the stories they tell. A guy will get up, who knows who does the same shtick. The audience may not even know who he is, but because he's got the backing of their local church and fancy music, and he's dressed in a suit and he's saying the right words, he'll tell some random anecdote about some time he was in Africa and healed like 30 people from the dead, and people will believe it, and they will have a nice emotional experience and then go home and make really bad decisions based on this stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So, yeah.
What's the harm?
What?
What's the harm?
I know. What's the harm?
It's really faith healing. I mean, maybe he's a pious fraud. You know what I mean? Like, maybe he really believes that he can do this.
I wouldn't be surprised.
You know, and that's entirely possible.
I've met people who have rationalized this away. They rationalize what they're doing because they're doing something that they think is noble and good, and that all this semi-manipulative or misleading stuff is just dealing with people because people need to be led.
Amounts of money they make from it.
It's to support the ministry. They're having. It's a noble cause. All this is to support this noble cause.
Well, you see that all the time with like the Shroud of Turin.
Bible.
You understand that. I understand that now. But people rationalize. I mean, it's not just this. People easily rationalize all kinds of stuff that are even bigger than this. So.
Yep. What about the Shroud of Turin, Bob?
Oh, the Shroud of Turin. I mean, the church doesn't go one way or another on it being the actual thing, but they're willing to use it to bring people to Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, that's...
Especially if they're donating.
Yeah. I mean, that's an institutional thing that has its own kind of ethics, you know? Institutions seem to operate...
Well, the blood of Januarius, too. It's not... It hasn't been declared a miracle, but it's worthy of veneration.
Worthy of veneration, and the Pope uses it as a kind of a crutch to for his nauseatingly pious saying, you know, that the saint is only half pleased with us, you know. Throw that crutch down. Be healed of thy bullshit.
I think the next time I'm at a nerd con of some kind, I'm gonna start calling things that are there that are worthy of veneration, just because that's terminology I want to refer to things that I care about. So.
Absolutely.
Well, like the flying spaghetti monster, because he often goes to nerd cons.
That's true. He's worthy of veneration.
Well, I
think
think
the beer fountain.
There is a sort of sympathetic magic that you see that relates to, you know, the fact that you're holding the blood of this saint, or you have a cross or something that resembles something very important to you, and it makes you feel like you have a personal connection to it. I think the same thing goes with a lot of fandom. You know, a lot of the people who do cosplay, that helps them feel closer to that.
I have a replica pulse pistol from Farscape, and I think that is worthy of veneration.
You know, in the Middle Ages, people would go sometimes from church to church because the point where the host is raised, Bob, which I think sort of is the moment at which the miracle occurs.
Yep.
They would run. They'd go from church to church to church to see it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's like a medieval pub crawl.
Huh.
Yeah.
No one left.
I mean, they wouldn't be taking communion because that didn't happen every week. But, yeah. It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well.
Okay. I'm going to have to try to dig us out of this depressing hole we're in right now.
What depressing hole? That was awesome. We got to talk geek stuff and medieval.
Okay, that was slightly awesome, but the topic itself is the fact that
this
stuff
is me here.
Never go away is pretty frustrating. But Tim, which this is a much more uplifting topic, is going to defend Dr. Oz.
Oh.
Yes.
Demon.
I defended Dr. Oz just recently, in fact.
Why?
I shut down a guy who said he was a bad surgeon. I erased the words quack doctor in reference to Dr. Oz from the internet. Well, from one part of the internet. Somebody was weaseling about his training and saying that he wasn't trained very well, and I took that out too. What I'm referring to is Dr. Oz's Wikipedia article. And I'm referring to vandalism, basically. Now, if you're not familiar with Wikipedia, one of the things that made it so successful is it has this radically open policy. You do not even have to have an account on Wikipedia to edit Wikipedia. So anybody can jump in there and start adding text. These days, you tend to get a lot of pushback if you're not careful about that, so that's why I have a lot of training stuff on my site. But in the early days of Wikipedia, they needed as many people as possible to get in as quickly as possible to try to build the thing, right? So that was one of their strategies, and it worked amazingly well. But the side effect of that is that every nitwit with a beer in his hand gets a wild hair and decides to, take it out on their friend, or stick their brother-in-law's name into an article, or change.
Have a Wikipedia article, because.
Huh?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Me?
Change Larry King's birthday to the year 14. I've actually fixed that more than once. That is a very common piece of vandalism, is people will go in and change Larry King that he was born in 1701 or 1615 or something like that.
Is there a place that catches this kind of funny?
Oh yeah, in fact, I did a whole blog post a few months back about BuzzFeed did a list of the wackiest vandalism. Yeah. And in fact, there's a list on Wikipedia of the weirdest vandalism on Wikipedia. Yeah. And some of it can be funny and very creative writing. There was one that I linked to in my blog post this week that was, I said, verged on science fiction, where... and it was on Larry King's article, where someone wrote, and I'm quoting, "His exact date of death is unknown, but it is estimated to have been approximately 1998. King regularly leaves his unmarked grave in western Connecticut to film his popular television program and to feast on the living. His favorite color is purple."
Which is just random to put in there.
Yeah, and there's more. There's more to that too. It's like a whole little science fiction story about Larry King's paranormal powers. And I guess people do it to amuse themselves. But it's actually in that BuzzFeed article. BuzzFeed did a list of the wackiest stuff that was in Wikipedia, and I went back and found each piece of vandalism and charted how long it lasted. And some of these things will literally last seconds.
Mm-hmm. They're really. I've noticed that if you make an edit that, for whatever reason, it's not the right type of source, very quickly.
Yeah, people will jump right in.
It's like they have beats,
Yeah. Well, they actually have some robotic tools that look for, like, if you go in and write a swear word or use pejorative language in a biography, there are robots that will automatically go in and catch that stuff. If you type a lot of all caps, or if you blank out a huge section of an article, all of that can be caught automatically, and a lot of those things will get reverted very quickly. But there are other more subtle things that take someone to look at. And in the training material that the little bit of training material that I put on my SkepTools blog, one of the things I recommend to get practice is to patrol for vandalism, because what you can do is you set what's called a watch list, and these are articles that you've basically marked and said, here, these are the parts of Wikipedia that I'm interested in. And what you do is you put articles on your watch list that you know something about, right? Topics that you're interested in, biographies of people that you are a fan of or you're familiar with, articles about things in your town. And then when there's a place you can go and you can see, essentially, here are all the latest edits to the articles on your watch list, and you can just kind of look at them. And see, presumably if you know these topics, you'll know when one of those edits is baloney, and you can take it out. And literally it can be a click or two, depending on what your account settings are. Usually you got to put an explanation, but it's good practice to see, first of all, to see how much vandalism and crap gets put into Wikipedia, but also just to get used to using the tools of how you edit something, how you use a watch list, how you look at an edit to see what the other person did, and then how do you remove it and stuff. So I always recommend it as training. But the whole point of my blog post this week was to not, when you're doing this patrol, not solely focus on things that are dear to you. Don't just take vandalism out of Joe Nichols' article. Take vandalism out of L. Ron Hubbard's article, or a Dr. Oz's article, or somebody put Bart Sibrel, the guy who punched Buzz Aldrin.
Oh, yeah.
There's a thing where you can put categories at the bottom of articles, and there are things like American scientist and people born in 1980 and stuff like that, and they're just these categories that sort of lump articles together. Well, someone put the category douchebag on the bottom of Bart Sibrel's article. Now, there is no such category, but that didn't matter.
Oh, there is, Tim. Oh, there really is.
There may have been in the past, but there isn't now.
Not an official category.
So
I want to clarify. Bart Sibrel was punched by Buzz Aldrin, not the other way around.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah, I said that the wrong way around. So anyway, that was the point of my blog post this week, is that, we skeptics get accused of a lot of crap on Wikipedia, and we need to prove sometimes that we're being fair, and one really easy way to do that is to remove vandalism no matter where you see it.
Yeah.
And vandalism on Wikipedia has particularly strict rules on, they call it the BLP rule, biographies of living persons. Mm-hmm. For obvious libel-related reasons, they are very picky about what goes into a biography article about a living person, because Wikipedia potentially could get sued over that stuff. So you have to have really, really good sources, and you can't put things that are vague or whatever that could be construed in bad ways against that person. So those are good places to look for vandalism, because the rules are so strict you don't have to have a huge justification to remove things. So anyway, that was my little quickie blog post this week, and I think people kind of like the idea. Although some guy was arguing with me on Google Plus saying, but Dr. Oz is a quack.
I know.
And it's like, yeah, but go ahead, call him a quack on your website. We can't call him a quack on Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's reference material. Yeah. So, yeah. And it's reference material. If you want to make him, if you want to influence his people's opinion, put facts about him that justify his quackiness, but don't call him a quack.
Sure.
So start a controversy section. Never mind. That would be controversial, wouldn't it? I just defer to if I see something, I just usually leave a note or something like, hey, this is not quite right, and let admins who are experienced take care of it, because they'll know the type of stuff. They're familiar with the culture.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tim. Good advice for everybody out there who is putting their edits in the Wikipedias. Yeah, so that sounds awesome. Oh, I guess there's one more story.
Oh, yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, 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 boom. Ba-bum, bum, ba-bum. Ba-bum, bum, ba-bum. I love that. It's so awesome. It just feels right. Where's my slides? I got a video. Here we go.
I'm intrigued.
6 speeds. Okay. That's an ad. Let's not show the ad. I'm going to talk, and then we'll show the ad in. The problem with using Wikipedia.
Ad.
Yes.
I know. It's really horrible. Okay, so what you're about to see is a video from NASA. Called this thing is called the Super Ball. NASA.
Can you skip the ad?
I can't skip. Oh, I can. Let's look at that.
Because she's crapping in a cow field.
Yeah.
Okay. But I didn't have it on the big screen. So this thing that's flopping around all over the place, which is, there you go, flop, and it walks. Look at that. This is actually a robot. This is a potential design for a robot that could do space exploration on other heavenly bodies. Yeah.
Wow, that looks like a real person.
That's a real person. He's talking about it. But look at that thing. So this is designed by guys at NASA Ames with cooperation from a group at Berkeley. The idea is to produce a structure that can be modified through changing the tension in connecting wires. You can make it change its shape, you can fold it up, you can have it walk. It's very resilient to being hit or falling. It's also turns out to be quite good at rough terrain as far as rolling on the rough terrain. And what they want to do is build something like this as a as a rover. So one, it can fold up to a very small size, stick it in a rocket, send it to Mars, throw it at Mars, let it bounce around a bit, and have it wander around. It can actually the design we're looking at right now is only 6. Is it 6? Yeah, they have a prototype that's 6 poles. They're working on one that's 12. It's actually the size of a man. They're going to show that off at a conference in a few months here. The idea is to get so that it's actually 24 of these things, and can fold really small, but still it can like change its geometry and walk that way. And as someone mentions on Twitter, MedTech, who that is, yes, it's not as fun to kick. The design they're working on right now, the one that they're going to show off, actually does have a payload in it. So that's one of the questions I had when I saw this previewed before, is it doesn't look like it can carry anything, but apparently you can suspend, and if you look at some of the demo reels they're running, you can suspend a payload in the middle of it. And actually, if you tighten it up really rigid, you can get a solid platform to do imagery, which is another thing that I had a question about, because one of the most important things you need in a rover is to take pictures and video and send that back to Earth. And if you can't get a solid, steady platform to take video and images, you're just going to get blurs. You're going to get garbage. Don't really know when this is going to be launched or used, but it is wonderfully unconventional, very NASA-like. They like to build things that are unusual. I would like to see this on some upcoming exploration mission. I don't know how you'd weaponize this, but I'm pretty sure it can pummel you to death, or tangle you up in the wires and strangle you. Maybe some kind of small weapon in the center of it that could, bounce around and shoot at you multiple.
It's so weird looking.
Yeah, but it is.
It's got a buggy quality to it, Yeah.
There's They have a couple extensions a couple of ideas of how you would deploy this. They have one scenario they were talking about that's actually like a UAV that would fly it around to a location and just drop it, and it would like bounce wherever it needed to go. And they actually have an extension of that idea where they have a UAV frame that is this kind of structure. So the whole UAV is a crash-resistant kind of walking robot. So it could fly and then just flop onto the ground somewhere and then start walking around. That would be really cool. Just saying. It
would be.
Yeah.
Is that the payload?
That's one of the pictures that has kind of a mock payload in the middle of it. This full video, I'm going to link to it, so if you guys want to know all the details these guys are talking about, it's all there in gory detail. Neat, weird stuff. The shape, if you want to know really wild buzzwords, it's called the a tensegrity. Tensegrity structure, which means absolutely nothing to me. I'm not familiar with that.
Its integrity is made up of its tensile strength?
I guess.
I just made shit up there.
The definition is a characteristic property of a stable, three-dimensional structure consisting of members under tension that are contiguous and members under compression that are not.
Awesome. I knew it was a geometry term. There you go.
But basically it's pick up sticks with string.
Yes, pick up sticks with string. But cooler.
Yeah. And capable of killing us.
And capable of killing. Well, it's a robot. It will want to kill us sometime. I got another video.
It's inevitable.
This one's got goo. Is that an ad? That's an ad. I'm going to skip the ad in 2, 0, skip the ad. Okay. Did you read that? It said, well, this is about liquid metal. What you're looking at, what you're looking at is a ball of gallium with, there you go, it has a little bit of indium in it, a little bit of tin in it, and it's placed in a solution of sodium hydroxide or brine, so some kind of salty substance. And if you give it a little bit of aluminum for fuel, it will locomote itself. It will turn into a little motor and kind of run around these little tracks and stuff. It's a chemical motor. And they've done a bunch of experiments with it, seeing what practicality. The only thing that they came up with practical is that if you make it stationary, like if you pin it somewhere, it still spins, so you can use it like a pump. So it can actually move water at a small scale, and it powers itself. It says on a little, like a flake of aluminum, it'll run for an hour, is what they were saying. It's kind of cool. They've equated it in all the news press this is getting. They've kind of equated it as, oh my God, Terminator 2. But it's really not that. It's not really smart. It's just a neat little chemical reaction that allows it to spin up and run on its own. It doesn't have any smarts. It's probably closer to a wind-up toy. So instead of adding potential energy by screwing a spring, you give a little bit of aluminum, and the chemical reaction causes kinetic energy. So kind of cool, really cool. Chemistry that's practical. I mean, a lot of the nanotech stuff is also based on chemically making shapes and stuff like that, as opposed to trying to actually manufacture them. But not really good press about it. It's all the kind of misleading headlines and misleading talking about it being.
The media got something wrong again?
I know. But still, maybe it'll become sentient and want to suffocate us all with silver goo.
Or it becomes sentient and just gets all depressed and emo on us and just lies there.
It could. Yeah. Or it could get stabby.
Could get stabby.
So there you go. Not a big day in the not a big week in the robot apocalypse, but it's still interesting. Things will be weird, but we'll still die. There you go.
Yay!
I've been informed that one of my screens has been frozen, and there's nothing I can do about it now. So if you haven't guessed, sorry. Wrap up? Do we have any questions? Do we get any QAs? Let me pull the Q&A thing up.
There were some Q&As we forgot to get to.
Oh. The fandom menace. Well, it must have been in context.
Oh yeah, that would be. I don't know.
Yeah, I missed the context of that question. Sorry, Alex. Thanks for the questions. Okay then. So we've got trivia question. Did anybody get the trivia question?
No, we had a lot of good guesses of 1980s cult comedy movies like UHF and. Princess Bride and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Spaceballs, and I think some of those might have been in 1987. But the reason I said the Phoenix Lights was a clue was because the movie I was looking for was Raising Arizona. Phoenix is in Arizona, and Lynn Katai was a local actress at the time who played Florence, Arizona, the parent, one of the parents of the quintuplets, sextuplets.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There were. It's, she has like maybe 10 lines in the movie. Ironically enough, there's a line in which her husband says to a member of the press that she believes in UFOs. But yeah, she went on. She didn't have much in the way of other appearances in movies, but she went on to become a major booster of the Phoenix Lights, and she's got a whole website and has written 2 books and done a movie and da 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 da. Even though the Phoenix Lights has been conclusively debunked as a military skydiver, nighttime skydiver exercise.
Halo.
People still believe it was a UFO, or a series of UFOs.
Well, sorry guys, too bad you didn't get it. Nobody seemed to try to guess about the 2 obviously the season 1 X-File episodes behind me. But since nobody got it, I will tell you what they are. The one that's frozen is the first episode. It's episode 3 in season 1, but it's the first episode with the character Toombs in it, the guy who can squeeze himself through vents and suck out your liver. Ooh, tasty. Sorry about that. The other one is I think it's episode 11 it's later than that in the first season. It's when they go out into the woods to find some loggers that have disappeared and come upon creepy insects that can cocoon you and eat you alive.
Yeah.
So, wonderfully tasty episodes. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the episodes I really wanted because there's not a whole lot on YouTube. But those were ones that I enjoyed. So, there you go. Congratulations, whoever didn't guess. Book time and announcements. You have announcements?
Yeah, there was at least one in there.
Yeah. Bob and Eve and Tim, pretty much everyone but me, has segments on Skepticality this week. I have an announcement. If any of you who's watching this, probably, I don't know, are in the D.C. area this weekend, it is the 25th anniversary of Hubble Space Telescope. There are events going on all over the place. 2 in particular that I remember offhand is there's an event at the Visitor Center at Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt on Saturday. The public is invited. There's a bunch of stuff about the history of Hubble and some interesting presenters. And then on Sunday, there's a big event at the Maryland Science Center, which is in Baltimore. And it's like the afternoon. We're going to have speakers and talks and stuff like that. So if you're in the area, check those out. I can probably link to the NASA site if anybody wants to find out about other events, because there's tons of stuff going on.
And
like, for instance, tomorrow night I'm going to a presentation at Air and Space Museum in D.C. where Mike I can't get his name right, Massimino, the shuttle astronaut, is going to talk about his work or his experience when they repaired the Hubble, because he was one of the astronauts that did it.
Ooh.
So that's
and
kind
he
of
was on Big Bang Theory, I think.
Yes, and he was on Big Bang Theory.
Nice.
Yep.
Also, another event coming up is RavenCon from the 24th to 26th of April. I'll be there. As will some people in our audience. I haven't heard back from them. I don't know if you're on the panel yet. Sorry. Okay.
Okay. Okay then. So, book time.
Book time,
folks.
Yep.
Well, Eve, why don't you go first?
Silence. Innocent stood in his slippers in front of the high altar at the Lateran and yelled at an unruly crowd of priests, "Silence!" An eyewitness wrote that the hubbub only worsened as members of the congregation gave up on insults for fists. Miters were dislodged, tonsures ruffled, croziers swung.
Croziers?
Yes. The second plenary session of the Lateran Council degenerated into an undignified tussle between bishops who supported different pretenders to the German throne.
I have no idea. Bob.
Science begins with counting. To understand a phenomenon, a scientist must first describe it. To describe it objectively, he must first measure it. If cancer medicine was to be transformed into a rigorous science, then cancer would have to be counted somehow, measured in some reliable, reproducible way.
Okay. Tim?
Over the years, I have visited and investigated many of these haunted sites. I climbed the 219 steps of the 165-foot lighthouse at St. Augustine, Florida. As assistant keepers, my wife and I stayed a few days in the remote Big Bay Point Lighthouse on Michigan's Upper Peninsula, perched on a cliff overlooking Lake Superior. We did the same at 30 Mile Point Light on Lake Ontario, so named because it is 30 miles east of the mouth of the Niagara River. A bonus of the latter was access to a few years of entries recorded in its guest books, or maybe should I say ghost books, given the various mentions, pro and con, of spooky phenomenon.
Ooh. Okay. The photo on the left of the right side up pairs. It looks horribly distorted, while the left member of the upside down pair does not look very unusual. In reality, the bottom pair is identical to the top pair, except the top photos have been flipped. I know because I flipped them. If you don't trust me, just rotate the book 180 degrees, and you'll see that what is now the top pair will appear to have the bad photo, and what is the bottom pair will look pretty good. Your brain devotes a lot more attention and neural real estate to faces than many other kinds of visual phenomena, because faces are more important, but not upside down faces, since we rarely encounter those, except when performing headstands in a yoga class. That's why we are far better at detecting the distortions on the face that is right side up than the one that is flipped over. What's your book, Eve?
It's The Perfect Heresy, The Revolutionary Life and Death of the Medieval Cathars by Stephen O'Shea.
Oh, those Cathars. Those are pretty pictures.
Yep.
Oh, those medieval Cathars.
A horrible persecution.
Bob, what's your book?
The Emperor of All Maladies, A Biography of Cancer by Siddhartha Mukherjee. I mispronounced that last name. Oh. It's coming to PBS very soon as a documentary.
Yeah, and someone I know is reading it and recommended reading it, even though it's not an uplifting topic.
I'm sorry, but Oprah says it's a compulsively readable, surprisingly uplifting and vivid tale, thrilling.
Really?
That's what it says right there.
So we shouldn't read it.
Well, I always go with Oprah on this, so.
That's actually not Oprah. It's from.
That's the magazine, but you get the idea.
Tim, what's your book?
CSI Paranormal,
it's a Joe Nickell book.
Strange Mysteries by Joe Nickell. Since we had mentioned him several times, I figured it was appropriate.
Yeah, I was going to guess it was a Joe Nickell book. Mine. Let me show you the image that we're talking about first. That's the image. All right, it's got.
Yeah.
See how there's a distorted face, and then if it's upside down, they look fine.
Right.
But if you turn it the other way, it looks the same. Yeah, this is. I've seen that before, but it's been in other books and online as well. This is a book called "Your Unconscious Mind Rules Your Behavior." Actually, that's the subtitle. The title is Subliminal, and it is by Leonard Mlodinow, which you might. Some people might recognize his name. The first thing that I thought of. What? Go ahead.
He's spoken at Nexus.
Yeah.
At least once.
Yeah. And when I picked the book up, I didn't realize that he also was the one who co-wrote Stephen Hawking's books.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So interesting. It's I've only just started it, so I can't make a statement about the whole book, but so far it's been interesting, and a lot of stuff I've read other places. So there's that too. Is that everything? Are we done? No more questions? No more talks? No more funny jokes? Do we have to venerate my pulse pistol? Never mind.
Oh, that's just naughty.
I did not set that joke up on purpose. There's the logo. And there's the music. Thank you all for watching. That was a question? No. Thanks for watching. Virtual Skeptic is Virtual Skeptics with an S is an independent production of what'stheharm.net, Skeptical Humanities, myself, ICBS Everywhere, and Doubtful News. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com, and our theme music is by Music Can't and used with permission. Music Can't is without an S.
Again with the S.